My first time on Mars was unforgettable. After touring every corner of the Earth, living in post-apocalyptic Boston, and studying at a dozen universities, I thought I had seen it all. But while on the ground on the red planet, driving my rover through the whipping dust, that giddy feeling of wonder swept over me once again. Of course, I wasn't actually in any of these places, but both my brain and my body believed that I was. And at the end of the day, is there really any difference? I'm talking, of course, about virtual reality. Virtual reality has been called many things, from a passing fad, like 3D television, to the next big computing platform on the level of mobile phones. By now, many of us have already had the chance to try out VR once or twice, and have already started to make assumptions about the impact that it may or may not have. But regardless of your stance, if I ask you to picture who's actually using VR today, most of us will come up with an image like this. Someone isolated in their living room, waving their arms furiously in the air in between sips of Soylent and handfuls of Doritos. There's a ton of stigma about VR. People think it's for gamers, or claim that it's overhyped, or fear that it's going to have unintended consequences on humanity. And for the record, I think these are all legitimate concerns. But looking beyond them, there is so much more to virtual reality and the promise that it holds. I believe in a future where VR will be used around the world to improve people's lives and bring us closer together. But we're a long way away from that right now, which leads us to the biggest open question facing it today. What is it really for? Or perhaps more importantly, what can it be for? My own obsession with VR lies at the heart of this question. In my quest to answer it, I try to enter VR every single day for the past few years, even if just for a few minutes at a time. In that time, I've seen some things. I've met people and made real connections. I've used it as a tool to improve learning and education. And I've even built new worlds and shared those experiences with other people. But regardless of the specific application, there's one fundamental concept that makes VR so promising to me and all of its enthusiasts. It's its ability to create presence. Presence is achieved when your brain truly believes that you're no longer just standing in your bedroom or your living room, but somewhere else entirely. What VR is and will be for is anything that requires presence, and especially when presence is either expensive or even impossible to achieve. Consider this. We spend a tremendous amount of time transporting our physical brains to places that they're not. Think of multi-hour commutes or flying around the world just to go to a meeting or two. Why do we do this? It's because being face-to-face with someone, feeling present in the same room, matters. Video conferencing was heralded as the technology that was going to end the office as we know it, but it never delivered on that promise because it couldn't achieve presence. But what if we could create VR experiences that made you truly feel like you were in that meeting with those people? How would our concept of the commute or work in general change? Well, presence is foundational. What's even more exciting is what we can build on top of it. The research shows that when we're present in VR, it actually makes us feel like things are happening to us, as opposed to us just watching them happen to someone else. And when we can truly believe that we are somewhere or even someone else, we've just entered the most powerful vehicle for empathy that we've ever created. Now let's pause and reflect for a moment. Why did you all come here today to watch Low Keynotes instead of just catching it on YouTube later? It certainly can't be because of comfort. I'm sure your couch is much nicer than these chairs, and definitely standing. On almost all metrics, the at-home experience is better than live, except for one. We come to live events like these because we want to feel something. to absorb the energy of the speaker and the people around us, to laugh and to cry, and to share those feelings with the people sitting next to us. In these live experiences, it's our presence that powers empathy. But we can't always come to live events, just like we can't always fly around the world to understand how people live their lives. So to achieve presence, we usually rely on reading stories or watching videos. But it's one thing to read a story about Italy, or to see a picture of Rome, or to even watch a movie like Gladiator. But it's an entirely different thing to step into Julius Caesar's shoes and see the world as he did. The research supports the fact that when we have experiences, even if they're just simulated ones, it makes us much better connect with and understand that content, up to 4 times more than if we were just to read about it or watch it. So while TV gives us a window to peer into another world, VR lets us step into that world and truly immerse ourselves in it. It's an entirely new medium for empathetic storytelling. But what stories can we tell? Consider Clouds over Sidra, a VR experience built in partnership with the United Nations and presented at the World Economic Forum. The mission was to take global leaders and help them better understand what life is like for a young girl living in a Syrian refugee camp, and inspire them to start making a difference. Or consider Melting Ice, a VR documentary featuring Al Gore that transports people to the remote parts of the world that are most affected by climate change to give them a vivid understanding of the real impact that it's already having. VR is also being used to combat domestic violence. In a recent study, researchers have taken men who've committed these acts and put them into VR, except in the body of a woman. The men are then subjected to simulated domestic violence, and it's been proven that it actually makes them more empathetic to the others around them and will hopefully prevent future incidents. These are just a few of the examples that are possible now, and every day we're learning more about how we can use VR as a tool to reimagine empathy. Well, I'm clearly just a little bit obsessed about VR. I don't think that it's me or even anyone in this room who stands the most to gain from it. VR is going to unlock experiences for the vast majority of people in this world who don't have access to them right now. Consider the moment when anyone with a headset can feel like they're sitting in a classroom at a top university, listening to inspiring educators, and having real social interactions with the people next to them. That's the moment when we've made world-class education available to anyone. The release of cheap but high-quality VR headsets in the coming years will make it possible for everyone not just to feel greater empathy, but to have experiences that were previously impossible for them to have. So, regardless of the opinion about VR you walked in with here today, I encourage you to broaden your perspective on what it can and will be for. Much like how black and white television or the first mobile phone only hinted at what was to come, VR is still very much in its infancy. It will take time, but it's a future worth building towards. And in that future, everyone will have the ability to feel present anywhere, with anyone, at any time, and the human race will be much more connected because of it. Thank you.